Okay, back with our third and final installment here with buying a car. We ended last session by looking at these resources, and I wanted to point out one more, and that's this kbb.com, kellybluebook.com, and I have their website pulled up here. So if we go to kbb.com, I thought I did. Okay, the Kelley Blue Book. It's kind of like the encyclopedia, or it's just the Bible of cars. It's like it says, a very trusted resource. So whether you want to know how much you should pay for a new car, what you should pay for a used car, what's my current car worth? So if you want to sell your car or trade it in, how much should you get for it? Okay, based on its condition and its mileage. Or again, if you want to buy a used car, okay, give you an idea of what you should pay. If you want to buy a new car, give you an idea of what you should pay. So it's a great resource. It's called the Kelley Blue Book. kbb.com is the website, and I think in class we'll be checking this out quite a bit because they have an app that you can use on your iPad. So it's the kellybluebook.com. Great resource for all things cars. Okay, so back to where we were. We want to talk about one other option when obtaining a car, and that's a lease. And unfortunately, this is what you see advertised most of the time on car commercials. When they quote these ridiculously low prices, what they're actually quoting is the price to lease a car. So they try to trick you with these low prices on the commercials to get you to go in and look at the car at the dealer, and then you realize that's not the price to buy the car, that's the price to lease the car. So leasing really is the same as renting. Okay, so you don't own the car, you got to give it back after a certain amount of time. The same way when you rent an apartment, after the lease is up, you got to move out. Same thing here. You're renting the car, when the lease is up, you got to give it back. Okay, so the lease has some terms. Typically, you sign a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease. You get to drive a certain amount of miles, and that's it. So let's say you have a 3-year lease. You're allowed to drive at 36,000 miles, and that's it. So after 3 years, when you give the car back, if it has more than that, then you pay a fee or a penalty. And it can be anywhere from 10 cents a mile, and I've seen up to a quarter for every mile over. So that doesn't sound like a lot, but what if you went 10,000 miles over, okay, and you have a quarter-mile penalty? Well, you got to cut a check for $2,500 because you drove more than your lease term. So it can add up depending on the terms. So to lease a car, you give some money up front. You give kind of like a down payment when you're moving into an apartment. So you give a down payment when the lease starts, typically a couple $1,000, and then you pay each month, kind of like paying rent. So you give some money each month, you give some money up front, and then you get to drive the car. Now they advertise this because the monthly payments are going to be smaller than if you went out and got a loan and actually bought the car, because you're not actually buying it. So it can have a cheaper monthly payment. So that's what they try to entice you with in these commercials. Now, you're smart enough to know that, yeah, you're paying less each month, but after 2 years, you don't have a car. So now you're back to square one. Okay, so it's really not for the everyday car owner. Typically, businesses will lease cars if they have salespeople that are driving them, because they don't want those employees or those salespeople, or taxi cab companies that are police officers. They don't want police officers driving around in 5-year-old cars that are going to break down. So they'll lease cars, and then after 2 or 3 years, turn those back in and get brand new ones. So that they have the warranties, they're reliable. Same with businesses. They don't want their salespeople out there driving around in old cars and have to risk something breaking down and have to pay for repairs. So they go ahead and we'll lease the cars. Okay, so or if you're a person that's got a lot of money and you just always want a new car every couple of years, it might make sense to go ahead and lease. So it's not for everybody, but it is an option that's out there. Okay, and let's maintain our car here. So this, no matter what kind you have, I always suggest following the scheduled maintenance. So when you buy a car, especially a new car, you're going to be told that, you know, after 3,000 miles, bring it in and we're going to do this. After 10,000 miles, bring it in and we'll do this, and so forth, all the way up to 100,000 miles. And some of them are expensive, and it could be that you think your car is running fine. You bring it in for one of these scheduled checks, and they tell you they're going to do, you know, $600 worth of repairs. All right, so you know it's not free, but you know the quote there, "Stitch in time saves nine." The things they do for the $700 might, you know, down the line save you something catastrophic from happening that could cost you $7,000. So I just think it's a good idea to do that. Okay, some basics of getting your oil changed should be about every 5,000 miles. To go much past that and to not change the oil, I mean, it's the most important thing your engine has, unfortunately, these days, that we're still reliant on that, but that's for another argument. But you got to get it changed. Okay, you got to keep fresh, clean oil in there to keep your car running. Your tires can be expensive, and people just don't do this enough, but you have to get your tires rotated so that they're not being worn out and worn in the same way. So they get them rotated about every 5,000 miles to extend the life of your tires. Tires can be, you know, $800,000 for decent tires, so you want to make them last. Okay, and then you find a trusted place to get your oil changed, and you know, try to just go there, and you know, they let you know if you need new fluid here, if you need new windshield wipers, if you need new air filter, and they keep track of what's going on. And you also want to have a mechanic that you trust. To go to a dealer, like if you have a Ford, to go to the Ford dealer for you know, a mechanic can be expensive. They charge more. That's just the nature of the game. So you want to maybe try to find a local mechanic shop by your house that you can trust. And then, you know, when you can, park inside to keep the exterior of your car looking good. So if you can park in the garage and not get snowed on, or not park in the garage on the driveway for a hailstorm and whatnot, then it just makes sense to do that. So these are just some little things to keep in mind when you have a car, that you do what you can to keep it running and looking nice, so that you can get your money's worth. And that'll do it for all of our lessons on buying a car.